Good evening and welcome to this edition of the Hamilton Report. Today is the 6th day of December. It's also the last night of Hanukkah. So, to all of our Jewish friends, I hope that this has been a wonderful holiday for you, a time of spending quality time with your family and just having a wonderful holiday celebration. I am really excited about my guest tonight. Unfortunately, the topic that brings us together is one that doesn't so much excite me as it does angers me, as it does many Democrats in our state. We spoke last week about all of the insanity of the Republican Party, and we touched on this particular topic, but just narrowly. And so tonight we're going to explore it in more depth. The Oklahoma Republican Party swears that they are the pro-life party. Well, that may be true until the baby is born. You see, they're not very pro-life when it comes to many other things, and that includes protecting ourselves, our children, our businesses, and our homes from guns. Now, no one's suggesting that we should confiscate every gun everywhere, but it's time to start talking about common sense legislation for guns. And common sense is something that's been sorely lacking in our legislature for way too long. And that's why I'm thrilled to have legislators like our guest this evening. Representative Melissa Provenzano from Tulsa was one of the very first people to respond after the school shooting last week, and I was moved by her words. When I asked her if she could be with us this evening, she explained that she was attending an event in Tulsa with Adam Schiff tonight, which I would have certainly understood if she had just left it at that and said, no, I need to take a rain check. Instead, she made it work. So I'm very happy that she's with us this evening. And Melissa Provenzano, welcome to the Hamilton Report. I'm delighted that you're here.
Oh, thank you, Scott. I appreciate it. I'm glad that you reached out. I hope it's okay that I'm doing this from my car.
It absolutely is. Yes, it does work. And this is actually a life lesson for our viewers on what it's like to be a legislator, because your time is never really your own.
No, never. But that's the choice that we make.
One of the things that I admire so much about you is that you carry yourself as a teacher. You use moments to teach, and I've seen you do that with colleagues, and I've seen you do that in small groups and larger settings. Mm-hmm. But this is an issue that's very important to you, especially coming from a classroom, but also now as a legislator. What must it feel like to be in a room of largely men who are more attached to their guns than their mothers?
It's a struggle. It feels like there's this curtain that you can't get on the other side of. I started as a teacher and then really got a picture of just the crisis in schools because of lack of, creative and common sense problem solving as a principal, and had a few near misses of my own. And so, and just, it really breaks my heart when I see the types of things that happen in Oxford, and knowing in the back of my head that the type of legislation we need is the type of legislation that can never see the light of day. So I've got to talk about it as much as possible until it becomes a part of our conversation in a permanent way about, I know nobody's coming for your guns, just like you said, but you can be responsible with their use. I'm encouraged by what I'm seeing out of Michigan right now and the actions being taken, and holding the parents responsible, to be quite frank.
I agree with you. I listened to the arraignment on Saturday of the parents, and the father was almost defiant in the way that he approached it. The mother was teary. But I think that that's a powerful move when we say, you know what, this is your house, your gun, your kid, your responsibility.
Right, right.
Why has that been such a difficult thing to comprehend or actually to move forward on around the country? Because if the kids are bringing the handguns or any guns from home, then there's a failure in parenting there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I couldn't agree with you more. And when we bring this up and we talk about parent responsibility, well, you want parents to be able to choose what school their kids go to. Okay, you want parents to be able to have a say in the curriculum. Okay, but when it comes to Second Amendment, well, we're going to interpret it however we need to interpret it to keep the gun lobby happy and selling weapons using fear. And it's embarrassing, and it, most common sense folks out there know, if you're going to have a weapon, you darn well sure be able to know how to use it. You need to keep it locked and secure when it's not in use, and be responsible. And these parents in Oxford were not responsible, by our definition. And I think most Oklahomans, when you take the D or the R off of it, they want to see common sense gun legislation.
I guess there is so much rhetoric on the other side. And
Mm,
I remember when President Obama was elected the first time.
mhm.
And I mean, you couldn't buy a bullet in the entire country. Everyone was stockpiling ammunition
Yeah,
because Obama was coming for their guns. Well, he made it through 4 years without knocking on my door,
yeah,
and another 4 years. And so I still have my handguns,
right,
but I have them legally.
right.
And I store them properly so that no one in my family is going to be hurt or to possibly take one and use it some way that it was not meant to be.
Right.
So where do we, and I know that this is almost a rhetorical question because our numbers right now in the legislature are small in
Mhm,
terms of Democrats. And
mhm.
the work that you're doing, I know that sometimes it must feel like rolling that stone uphill.
Yeah.
But you continue to be vigilant in speaking about responsible gun ownership.
Mhm,
When when a parent sends their child to school,
mhm.
they should have every possible reason to expect that their child will come home from
Right,
school that day.
right,
And sadly, as we saw last week, some kids never come home.
right.
So where do we do this in a public fashion that people can actually start to talk about the misinformation, disinformation, absolute lies out there?
Mhm. Gosh, I don't even know where to tag in, but you have to use this moment because, gosh, there keeps being moments and keeps being moments and keeps being moments, and you have to start looking at who it is. And so many folks believe, oh, it's somebody that's come onto campus. No, these are kids in our schools, kids that attend those schools, and often the ones that, are the loners or the ones that don't feel like they're connected in any sort of way. And you see all these schools right now who are being attacked left and right by our fellow, representatives on the other side of the aisle, for all this bad work they're doing. But then, hey, keep our kids safe. But we're also not going to send you the money to be able to implement these programs. And don't talk to me about social emotional learning. That's something for super far lefters. No, it's good counseling and being a good person. And the right has, capitalized on this social emotional learning tagline, to try to make it something evil when really it's just taking care of people, and had we tapped into, hey, what's going on with this kid, a little sooner, we could have caught that and stopped it and stopped the killing of these innocent children. And, it breaks my heart to think that politics is getting in the way of our safety. And that the gun lobby is so involved and is so connected to gun ownership, and do not take their guns, that they use fear. And we Democrats like to use logic and reason and explain, and at some point we've got to stop explaining and say, listen, enough is enough. With great power comes great responsibility. This gun has a lot of power. The answer is not more guns, because if it were, we would be the safest nation in the world. But we have more school shootings, and we have 125 guns for every 100 people in the United States. Hasn't made us any more safe, as far as I can tell.
Let's look at that number for just a moment.
Sure.
Considering that I know many, many people who do not have a gun.
Right.
They don't own a handgun. They don't own a rifle or a shotgun. It's not something that they want to own.
Right.
So that there's a good chunk of our population who has no firearm.
Right.
So that means that some people have a lot of firearms.
Right.
And if you're a collector, then that's great. Do your hobby. But when it becomes, I guess, a way of life, and sadly, in a state where it seems like everyone can and does carry a firearm, how do we ever really feel safe?
Gosh, I think it depends on who you ask. But I think, the first thing in our schools that we have to do is, honestly, it really bothers me that the burden is falling to the schools. But, every single principal and district is saying, how can we keep our kids safe from things like this? And, tapping into finding out what's going on with these kids and then becoming alert much more quickly. But then we've got this legislation that I'm getting ready, that I sort of talked about, saying parents or guardians can bring weapons onto campus to protect. And I'm like, well, so the whole good guy with a gun, how do we know which one of these parents is a good guy? Because I've had folks in my office about to come to blows, the parents, when their kids are in trouble. So who says who's a good guy with a gun? It's kind of hard. And how do we talked today with several of my fellow senators and representatives about, well, so what's the answer there? Who decides who gets to carry a gun on campus? And we're really on dangerous ground when we start talking about that. And we need the SROs and the police officers that are already on every single one of our campuses in Oklahoma at the high school level. They're there for our safety. They've been trained. They know how to safely use their weapon. They know how to de-escalate a situation. Then you've got a parent or a guardian coming in angry and trying to help. That's deeply concerning, because we don't need them impeding the work that our officers do to make the situation safe quickly.
Absolutely. And if you have 6 or 8 or 12 good guy parents rushing in to help,
right?
I mean, that is an absolute recipe for death.
Right. However well-intentioned, honestly, because parents want to protect their kids, and it seems like a fast and easy path, but it's not. It's just not. It's a recipe for disaster, as you said.
Today on her live broadcast, Chairwoman Alicia Andrews talked about 3 pieces of legislation that are already put up in the Senate. And this is of the first 21. 3 of those are dealing with guns.
Oh, my goodness.
And one would allow certain people to carry guns into gun-free zones.
Teachers.
Now, if a gun-free zone should be just that. It should not be exceptions.
Right.
And, as I heard someone talking last week, if you're a teacher or an administrator, and now here you've got a student that you've been teaching that has been in your class every day and now poses a threat, this is someone you have a relationship with.
Right. Right.
How can a teacher ever be expected to recover from that? That trauma will live with them forever.
To put it plainly, they're not going to take the shot. If you have a relationship with that kid, you're going to do everything that you can, and how can we ask teachers to do this? Of course, all teachers want to keep their kids safe. Why would they be a teacher otherwise? But are we also going to pay them the salary of a police officer? And will they be provided with the training free of charge and in the summer paid with pay to take on that responsibility? It's too many hats for one person. We need our police officers to be able to do that work. and not a teacher. It's too much. It's too
And we
much.
need our teachers to be able to teach.
Right, right. I don't really need to teach English, but then also accidentally forget to put away my weapon, and a third grader find it in the bathroom, which has happened here in
Yes.
the United States. And so, how could you live with yourself? And I just, it's a lot.
One of the other, and you talk about insensitive. I'm not even going to mention this individual's name because he's really good at running up performance legislation.
Yes.
And, he
Yeah.
wants his headlines. So I'm going to leave it at that. If anybody's interested, you can go look up dumbass on the internet. And that's pretty much what you'll find.
The sad thing is,
But
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I know. But this Kyle's law, the insensitivity of it, when so many people in this country were literally just devastated that this young man committed homicide,
Right.
and was found innocent of murder.
Right.
And so now he's being celebrated by a former president. He's been offered internships in the Capitol.
Mm-hmm.
And so now he's being made into some kind of a folk hero.
Oh my
And so now this law, this Kyle's law, would mean that if someone was arrested, like in this case, where it was he claimed self-defense, that you wouldn't have to pay your own legal fees. Worse than that, if you could demonstrate that it was self-defense, you cannot be held liable for for civil proceedings.
Oh.
So that means you've got a mother with 3 dead kids
Mm-hmm.
who has no recourse.
Mm-hmm.
That is shameful. I mean, if we go back to the early days of this country, and especially opening up the western part of this country, it was a lot of Wild West guns,
Mm-hmm.
but there were consequences for using those guns irresponsibly.
Right. And that's the piece we're missing. Here in Oklahoma, we're rugged and we're resilient and we're tough, but that doesn't mean showboating with your gun strapped to the side of your hip. It doesn't mean it means you take care of your own and you take care of the people next to you, and we take care of each other. And we're moving away from that is what concerns me. We're moving away and saying, I got mine and you get yours and stay out of my way. And that is not the Oklahoma way. I mean, we help our neighbors in tough times, and it's just, and in good. And gosh, and I'm going to tell you, I hadn't heard about Kyle's law, but my stomach is literally turning over. But then again, I have to remember that the person that shall not be named is often prone to running sensational things just to get attention. And so let's not give him any more attention, because I can't see that making it or seeing the light of day. It would be so fraught with the potential for a lawsuit. And perhaps,
oh my gosh, it would. And yet our temporary governor, is just, he is so committed to sucking up to the gun lobby.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, it wasn't long ago when he was courting the NRA to come to Oklahoma.
That's correct.
A bankrupt organization.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's really great for our image in Oklahoma. I don't understand that kind of thinking.
It's simple thinking.
Yeah, it is simple thinking.
Yeah.
And I have family members who hunt.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Right.
If you're hunting legally, wonderful.
Right.
That's not the problem that I have.
Right.
The problem that I have is waking up at 2 a.m. and hearing gunshots in my neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
especially if it sounds like it's coming from a moving car.
Yes.
So right now, already, it's too easy to get a gun, no training, just buy it, put the bullets in it, and think they're good to go. Yeah.
Right. Right.
But it's so much more. We don't. You can't drive a car without taking classes, without taking tests. Yes, exactly.
You can't serve food in a restaurant. I mean, some basic training isn't too much to ask. And honestly, I think it was a small faction of people who wanted permitless carry. and circling back. And I can't speak about Michigan, but I can imagine that, had that event happened here, we would be having that conversation again about, how easy it is to go buy something on one day and have it in action and without having to have any sort of training whatsoever. And I can't imagine the conversation that went on inside that home before this young man went to school with the weapon. But I would hope and I believe that 99.999% of the people, are making sure their guns are locked up tonight, and making, and after that event, making sure that they know where the key is, because I know I did. My husband and I both inherited guns from our fathers and our grandfathers, but those suckers are locked up and secure, and we know how to access them if we need to be helpful. And again, nobody wants to take your guns, but dang it, can we be smart about it? Can we be reasonable? Can we take care of our fellow man? I mean, it's not the wild, wild west.
It's not. And, we, and I know I'm talking to the choir here, but it's just so incredibly frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at this map for a minute.
Sure.
These are school shootings in the United States
Mm-hmm.
so far this year.
Oh, this year. Oh my goodness.
This year. And this should be enough to horrify everyone, whether they have children or not.
Right. Oh,
I don't have kids, but I believe in public education.
right.
The older I get, the more concerned I am, because I want some smart people to be able to take care of me when I get old.
Well, we need our prescriptions to be filled correctly when we get old, don't we?
Yes, we do. We do.
And oh gosh, I have to wonder a little bit. And that's why we need a strong public education system, because the rising tide lifts all ships. And when you see a kid in crisis, and make no mistake, this kid, before all of this happens, was in crisis. Something. Yes. There's more to this story. There's more. But had somebody tapped into him before all of that, as an elementary student, as a middle school student, as a young high school student, we would not be having this conversation, and it just, we're missing the counseling piece. We're missing the risk assessment piece. When counselors or teachers or students say something's up here, and we check on a kid to make sure things are going okay. We're understaffed and overburdened, and teachers are leaving in droves. And so we're going to miss things like this, and we can be better. And we like to hear our Republicans talk about how we've had here in the state more education funding, the biggest raise in education funding in over a decade. Well, that's true. And you followed right behind that with 2 tax cuts. But let's not get into that. And we're relying on the federal stimulus dollars that we've gotten to make that case. And so in 3 years, we're going to be in a pickle. And then we're going to start slashing budgets again. And so it would make so much more sense to have an investment up front of Common Core services. And so we don't find ourselves in this situation, because it will happen here. And according to your map, it has happened here in the state of Oklahoma. Yes. And it's going to happen again and again and again. And it's not happening to this scale in any other country across the world.
It would be unimaginable in literally any other place in on the globe.
Right. And we can use we can do this. I believe it. And I think we've got to capitalize on this conversation right now, going, parents, make sure your guns are locked up. But my goodness, don't we think the parents should have some sort of responsibility? And I was so pleased to see that come out of Michigan, because that is the most common sense approach. You're responsible for your child in every other aspect of their life.
Right.
This needs to count.
I agree. You have to go to spend time with Mr. Schiff tonight.
Yes.
And I'm a little bit jealous of that. But before you do, I just want to show folks, this is your website. You are running for re-election.
Yes.
And I want you to know that you have our firm support in continuing to be an advocate for common sense gun laws. you're doing an amazing job, and I encourage you and your colleagues to just keep at it, because ultimately that's the only way we're going to make a difference, if we just don't back down. So thank you so much for work that you're doing, the work that you will do,
Thank
and
you
for
for
being with us this evening.
thank you for being willing to talk about it. It is so hushed tones, and I'm like, I'm so tired of this. I don't have time for this. If I was wanting to be quiet, I would go somewhere else and do a different job. So
You know
anyway,
what? I'm gonna get you a megaphone for Christmas. How's that?
all right. Well, I'll let
Shout
you
it from
go.
the roofs.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Our guest this evening has been Representative Melissa Provenzano from Tulsa, just an amazing advocate for children, for Oklahomans, and for good thinking. You know, it's time to put an end to the chaos in our state. It's time to look at things from a whole, as opposed to the little pieces that we want to get into. And you know exactly what I'm saying, because you are, I'm guessing, very closely aligned with what the representative was talking about and what I've been talking about. We have to do better, Oklahoma. We have to do better. We have to cut the lies where they are. We have to cut the misinformation, the disinformation, so that people can live their lives happy and healthy, and with every reasonable expectation of your child coming home safe from school today. So it was great to have her with us. Before we go, I want to just mention a couple things real fast. If you are in the Tulsa area, I hope that tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock, you will stop by the Starlight Bar at 1902 East 11th Street in Tulsa. That is the Camelot Karaoke Christmas Party. It's I think it's going to be a great evening, and this is the first step toward the Karaoke Cup. The Oklahoma Democratic Party is issuing now a full out invitation to everyone in the state who wants to get up and sing karaoke. We're doing this one in Tulsa this month, and then after the first of the year, there will be one in Oklahoma City. We've gotten requests from some other places, so we'll continue to plan, and I'll keep you posted on that. But I think it'll be a really good time. Well, that's all that we have for this evening's broadcast. I just want to mention one more time or actually, I hadn't mentioned this to you. I told someone else. My guest next week is Linda Merriweather, who runs a wonderful program called Read With Me. It's where she and others read to young folks, with them and to them. It's a great service, and I'm anxious for you to meet her. Also, Alicia Andrews, our chair, does her live update every day at 4:15, and you want to be sure and catch it this week, because from now till Friday will be your last chance until after the holidays, because there's so much going on as we prepare for next year's midterm elections. So I hope that you'll tune in at 4:15 every day on Facebook and YouTube to catch the ODP Chair's live update. Well, friends, our time has come to an end this evening. I thank you for being with us. And I hope that you will share this broadcast and go back and look at some of our previous guests, because we have been blessed to have so many amazing guests on the Hamilton Report. On behalf of all of us at the Oklahoma Democratic Party and the Hamilton Report, I'm Scott J. Hamilton, thanking you for being with us, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Until then, take really good care of yourself and take care of each other. Good night.